have entered the PM Entertainment Podcast.
Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the PM Entertainment Podcast, the show that jumps back in time to the bygone era of the video store when shelf after shelf needed stocking with rentable genre fare, and one company in the late 80s stepped up to fill the void. Started by Richard Pepin and Joseph Merry in 1989, PM Entertainment emerged as a gun-shooting, glass-smashing, car-tossing, explosion-making powerhouse of the straight-to-video scene and phenomenal film school for martial artists and actors looking for their big break in a leading role, and for future film talent in the world of stunt cinematography and more. I'm your host, John Cross, and don't forget, if you like the show, please remember to rate and review us on any podcasting platforms you use, share our Facebook posts, like, comment, and you can contact us via our email, pmentpod@gmail.com. That is pmentpod@gmail.com. Our guest this week was my partner in crime for many years on the former Dr. Action and the Kick-Ass Kid podcast, where we would do comical commentaries on various 80s and 90s action films, former episodes of which are still online if you're interested. He is a risk taker, a heartbreaker, a lousy baker, a one-time casual listener of Cooler Shaker, and has never spent time with a devout Quaker. It's the Doctor of Action himself, Doc Paul Croson. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
It is an honor to be on this show. Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome, sir. You're very welcome. Just to introduce you to the listening several, anyone who is not aware of Dr. Action, the Kick-Ass Kid podcast, although I'm sure there are some listening today that remember that fantastic show that we did we did over 100 episodes of that. We did that for quite a while. Were you always into action films from an early age? Was action a genre that you gravitated to when you were first renting movies back in the day?
Absolutely. Grew up on Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, the usual suspects.
Yeah.
And that progressed through to all different types of the action genre, really. Martial arts, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan. And then, watching those sort of films, you start going down the different tunnels to different other action cinema. John Woo was a big one at the start of the 90s that was coming through. And that was a whole different type of action, which just kind of exploded onto the scene. And then we had the sort of offsprings of PM Entertainment. So it's always intrigued me as a genre, action has.
Yeah. And do you remember when you first came across a PM Entertainment film and sort of recognized it? Like, was there a movie that you saw the logo at the beginning of it and went, oh, it's one of them? Do you remember at that moment or not? Were they just part of your general action viewing?
I think I probably rented them. But truth be told, it was probably just another logo. I didn't think it was until we started doing the podcast ourselves and we were sort of both doing a bit of research and you sort of start connecting the dots, certain actors. Gary Daniels was in quite a few, Don Wilson. And then you do look at it and you can see where PM Entertainment's formed, and it's much like Canon.
Yeah, they are. Canon. Yeah, Canon is the forerunner. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. And PM Entertainment was, as you're going to discover in the podcast, just because they primarily did action, didn't they?
Primarily, yes. They do some thrillers and dramas. They do some sci-fi films, but predominantly most of them have some level of sort of action in them, even if they're more, even if they lean heavier on the thriller stuff or even the comedic stuff that they did. Yes, they do a bunch of genres, but I mean, action is what they became rightly known for, because I can't, even Canon, even when you look at Canon, and what's interesting is I just recently watched a ton of documentaries on Canon, both the Go-Go Boys and Electric Boogaloo one that Mark Hartley did. And what's really interesting about Canon is sort of their whole model was more growth-based and more based on, we want bigger names and bigger movies and bigger budgets and bigger things. And what's interesting about PM Entertainment is, while, yes, obviously their budgets grow over time and they become a lot action heavier and a lot martial arts heavier and other things as the movies go on, they never went the way of they never got to a sort of breaking point where they had entirely too many movies being made at once for too much money. I mean, yes, they definitely got to a point where they were like, all right, we don't want to do this anymore, and they kind of sold the business. But you do feel like, with the budgets the way they were, because I don't think any of their budgets really got much above maybe $1 million, 2 million, anything like that. And that's even for like the much later ones. Most of these were made for under $500,000, $350,000, $400,000, things like that, shooting on 35 mil. And they were knocking out 10 of these films a year, but they were all very much within the same kind of format. They weren't, unlike Canon, where they were like, well, we'll do a big, Superman sequel at the same time as doing a Death Wish sequel, at the same time as doing, Master of the Universe, at the same time as doing like a huge Zeffirelli, costume thing. Like they were, it was entirely too many things going on at once. You know what I mean? All at the same time, they were buying up theater chains and studio backlots and things like that. Like Canon just kind of grew too quickly and too large, kind of thing. And what's interesting, I think, is that what PM Entertainment seems to learn from that, not that I think it was necessarily conscious, but what they seem to learn from that is keep the pool of talent close and happy. So once you find someone good that you can build a franchise off or make more movies with, keep it going. Keep the budgets much of the same and shoot as best you can in the sort of Los Angeles to Las Vegas kind of area. You know what I mean? They weren't flying all around the world to make these things. And, they were sticking with the same crews a lot of the time. And as we'll find out, a lot of the same actors. So I just think that their stuff is, while it's probably more samey as opposed to Canon films, where sometimes you watch a Canon film, you're like, this was a Canon film? Who knew? Like you see the logo at the beginning, you're not even aware of it. With PM Entertainment, I think you always know what's coming. But they definitely use that Canon model of, and the Roger Corman model as well. Let's not forget, Roger Corman is definitely a precursor for these guys as well, of make something happen on the screen every 5 to 6 minutes.
The company Caraco did the opposite thing in the late 80s and 90s. They sort of went too huge and sort of burned out, didn't they? But PM Entertainment sort of knew the formula, just if it's not broke.
Right. And there were other guys doing it. Like, I've been collecting VHS now in America for a while. I mean, I'd always collected it when I was growing up. But since I opened my video store, I've been collecting VHS tapes again. And, you see the same production companies come more frequently. So things like Vidmark is a big one. Vestron, obviously, people know. And they all have their own style. Like when you watch sort of 3 or 4 Vidmark movies back to back, you go, oh, okay. But there's something about PM Entertainment. There's something unique. Their films have a unique flavor to them. And I think it's predominantly because they were a company that realized very early on that the model they wanted to go for was the straight to video model. They weren't making these to be projected on a big screen, although some of them did get film festival screenings and things overseas for film markets. For especially the Germans are a big fan of PM Entertainment, and obviously the Asian market is huge with action films. But in general, these were made to go on video, and that was their whole model, which was taken, funnily enough, from the adult film world that Rick Pepin came out of early on in his career. They were doing stuff straight to video, and he saw he had a friend of his who managed the big production house for adult films, and just saw this huge warehouse full of videotapes, and the guy was telling him what they make just shipping videotapes around the country, and he was like, well, we could always do that. And he kind of went back to Mary and said, maybe this is a model. So very interesting. Anyway, and but PM Entertainment, I think, more than anything else, has, as I say, a very defined style. It brings back a lot of the same actors over and over again, and as we'll find out as well, a lot of the same stunt performers and stunt coordinators. So when you were sending me DVDs, because Dr. Action the Kick-Ass Kid, just to let people know, kind of came out of this idea that I too had grown up watching kind of action movies, action adventure movies, predominantly like Indiana Jones and the Lethal Weapons and movies like that, but had never ventured, although I kind of knew like Don the Dragon Wilson as a name and knew Cynthia Rothrock as a name, and probably had seen some of their movies growing up just because they were kind of either on TV or at the video store.
Do you remember seeing like the video front covers?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I knew these names. These names were sort of out there. I can't say that I knew Gary Daniels and Jeff Speakman before meeting you and talking to you, but, I knew some of the things, and when we started the podcast, Dr. Action the Kick-Ass Kid, Doc was very kind to send me a ton of DVDs that he had found in charity shops or thrift stores, as they call them in the US, and various other places, and send me out like kind of what I call sort of a action B-movie primer. There were 30 or 40 movies that you ended up sending me, I think, over time. Maybe not that many, but certainly it seemed like a lot that I still watch today. And I don't know whether you were aware of this, but a good handful of them were PM Entertainment films. Like now that I have my movie collection all organized here in the house and I have all my PMs kind of together, or at least my action stuff all together, I look back and there were a surprising amount of ones that you sent me. I think Rage you sent me, Riot you sent me.
Yeah.
There was quite a few from back then. And so I kind of jumped in very quickly. It was really the Dr. Action show that got me up to speed on these things. And then I think I know you then sort of went off and started watching Westerns and other genres and things like that, but I sort of stuck with B-movie action. And it's, for me, I think my love of it and my knowledge of it and working out kind of where everything sits on a timeline has sort of become even more my passion. Now, I think you awoke a beast in me, sir. And that beast continues to roar.
Yeah, I think it's true. I think your knowledge far surpasses mine now on the B-movie genre, action genre.
Yeah,
and I'm happy to hand the crown over to you, sir.
I can say names like Frank Zagarino and know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, Project Shadow Chaser.
Indeed, right?
Yeah.
All right, our film on this episode is the Gary Daniels starring vehicle Rage, which might be considered probably the most well-known of the PM Entertainment films, and certainly one of the very highly regarded ones. It's from 1995. It's directed by the M of PM Entertainment, Joseph Merry, written by Joseph John Barmettler and Jacobson Hart, both of whom wrote some of the best key titles for PM, including T-Force, Pure Danger, The Silencers, Guardian Angel, Zero Tolerance, Steel Frontier, and many more. And the stunt coordinator and second unit director was none other than Spiro Razatos, whose name you'll hear a lot around here, but who cut his teeth in the horror genre and B-movie worlds for many years with films like Streets of Fire, Tough Turf, The Return of Living Dead 2, the Maniac Cop franchise, to name a few, but finally went fully mainstream as the main stunt coordinator on the Fast and Furious franchise, the Captain America films, and Kong Skull Island. Before we kick into our review and comments on the film, it's time for the PM Entertainment Bullet Points. Do you see what I did there? It's bullet points and bullet point. Anyway.
I like it.
It's the PM Entertainment Bullet Points.
For Rage, this is going to be an epic list. So here goes. We have fighting, explosions, car chases, a tanker and truck chase, cars flying through the air, cars flying through fire, men flying through the air, man flying through fire, people thrown through glass, a big fat abusive cop, loudmouth abusive news chief, antagonist rival journalists that are clearly morons, once ruined journalist protagonist who kind of looks like a frog-human hybrid makes good. Low-level cameos with Mark Metcalf and Peter Jason. Completely unnecessary S&M-based bedroom scene. Frying pan fight with a man in a leather skirt. Semi-comic fight with man and woman, both in S&M gear, where they'd rather trash their own house than simply ask Gary Daniels a question. Big evil company with only 80 million in assets who somehow have the entire police force of Los Angeles and the FBI at their disposal. Seems so quaint nowadays, considering 80 million in assets is nothing in 2025. Hanging off a high building, falling from a high building, swinging from a high building onto a helicopter, hanging off a helicopter, fighting while hanging from a helicopter, and falling from a helicopter. Trucks drive through windows, stopping in the middle of being chased by absolutely everyone to have sex on your sensei's enormous yacht. Video store full of PM Entertainment posters that gets completely trashed. A mall shootout, diving off a carousel onto a t-shirt vendor, and crowbarred in message at the end of an otherwise enjoyable romp of a movie. That's quite the list.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on that list right off the bat, sir?
I think that's pretty much it all covered.
Yes.
It's a good list.
It's a great list.
It's a good list.
And not every
Yes,
single PM Entertainment movie is going to have a list that long, but I think it's worth letting people know what they're in for.
Absolutely. Action galore.
Action galore. So first of all, we're going to start off with our overall thoughts. Doc, over to you as I've been talking quite a lot. What are just your initial overall thoughts on the movie Rage?
When you say roller coaster of a film, I was watching it and I sort of realised after sort of half an hour, it's kind of like there's not much plot that's been given away. You kind of know the plot's there, but it is so much more in service of the action. It's purely an action film.
Yeah, my feeling on it was that if the PM Entertainment edict was make sure that every 6 or 7 minutes there's an action sequence, I feel like Rage flips this on its head. Yeah. And it's almost like Joseph Merry is like, make sure every 6 to 7 minutes there's a small dialogue scene.
Yes. Yeah. Just let everybody know that it's not a silent film.
Right. Right, exactly, yes.
Yeah. But it's full on and the action is so good. So good.
Oh, definitely.
So it's highly thought of because it really is just it was levels above other action films at that point in the 90s.
Yeah, and
for me.
And I think if there's any movie from the PM Entertainment list that could have gone mainstream, you know, Rage is one of those, and I'll say this probably a lot on the podcast, but Rage is one of those that I think if there was a full-blown 16:9 widescreen remaster of this movie and it did the convention circuit or the festival circuit or the retro house circuit, you know, like the Landmark Cinema chains or the Alamo Draft House chains, I think this could get a whole new audience very, very easily. It's such a polished film.
I think if you do the job right on the podcast, which I know you will, and get enough tension, I could see the Criterion Collection probably snapping up those rides. Do all the PM Entertainment and have a nice box it out by the end of the year. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you see Criterion. So not like Arrow or Blue Underground or Vinegar Syndrome or Shout Factory.
No, just go straight to the top.
Yeah.
And you know when you see these Criterion Collection
Yeah.
cupboard bits?
Yeah.
And then we could have sort of like Warner Herzog going in and sort of going, PM Entertainment
Yes.
Collections box set. That'd be amazing.
Can you imagine Werner Herzog going in and going, oh, look, you have Rage starring Gary Daniels. I love Rage.
Yeah. I think that would be the cherry on top of the cake for this podcast.
So what you think this podcast will lead to, not only the Criterion Collection putting out every PM Entertainment film, but them then being available in the Criterion closet, and of all people, Werner Herzog going into the Criterion closet and at least putting some PM Entertainment films in his bag.
Yes. That's kind of the goal I think you have to have in life.
Yes. Think big is what you're saying. Think big, dream big.
Yes,
I am a man.
absolutely.
I have dreams. Yes, I would love that. I would love that. Especially with, as I said, all joking aside, like when you think of some of those bigger action movies that we mentioned at the beginning, whether it's the Schwarzenegger ones like Terminator or Commando, or the Stallone ones like Cobra and Rambo franchise and things like that. While obviously PM are playing with smaller budgets, this film, I think, is basically the most perfectly realized PM Entertainment movie. And what I mean by that is sort of from concept to screen, it sort of didn't put a foot wrong. It's sometimes there are scenes in PM Entertainment films where you have to kind of go, I don't know what that scene meant, but clearly they were going for something, but all right, on to the next thing. You know what I mean? And Rage doesn't have any of that. And the number of movies that owe this movie a debt, because while, yes, okay, there are some PM Entertainment films that people will say are, straight-to-video rip-offs of bigger Hollywood movies, this one feels to me like it actually inspired a ton of Hollywood movies.
I'd definitely say so. I mean, that freeway chase alone is really, really top notch. How much was the budget for this? Have you found that out?
I have not found out the budget for this. I can have a quick look.
I couldn't find it. The fact it was made for less than $1 million probably is crazy, considering what Netflix does nowadays, and it looks terrible. And this was all practical, and it wouldn't look out of place in a John Wick film.
Yeah, I mean, I've always read in general that the budgets hovered around 350,000 to 500,000, and then later on went up to like $1 million. That's what I read.
I mean, even $1 million, it's insane.
But we also have to remember that, like, in the last 5 years, let alone in the last 10 years, money. Titanic was made for what, 200 million? Was that the biggest budget there was up until that point, right?
Yes.
Yeah, since Titanic was made for that, 200 million is like, it's like that's like just a regular budgeted film these days. Whereas I feel like, okay, not in Hollywood, because obviously you have in the 90s some big hitters like Jurassic Park and others that come out where their budgets are sort of 50, 60, 70 million. But
yeah,
I still think that for the sort of straight-to-video era, whether it's the Corman stuff, the Canon stuff, the PM Entertainment stuff, the Vidmark, some of these other things, I think $1 million, $2 million is pretty, I think, pretty standard. But I don't know.
Absolutely, but for what they achieved on that, it's pretty remarkable. What they, every percent of that budget is on screen.
Oh, 100%. One of the quotes is that PM Entertainment's budgets were typically around 350,000 and were shot over a course of about 15 days.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. And very often they were but especially later on in PM Entertainment, they were shooting 2 or 3 films at once, very often, which is why sort of Mary directs some and Pepin directs some, and then they bring in like Munchkin and a couple of other directors. But most of their stuff is only directed by a handful of people, and most of their stuff is all produced by the same people and edited by the same people. And they try and keep similar stunt crews and everything working. But you can definitely tell the difference between like a Cole S. McKay stunt coordinated PM film and a Spiro Razatos stunt film.
Yeah, they had their own theatre groups.
Yeah, I feel like Spiro, and I feel this way about a lot of his stuff, because I've just because I'm a horror fan, a B-movie fan, and an action fan, you know, I've seen a ton of movies that Spiro worked on, and my feeling was that most of those movies, he's he wants stuff for his show reel. You know what I mean? So he's like, okay, what can we do? Any other comments on the general film as a whole? Any other comments on it?
No, not really. I mean, it's not a testing plot. Being exploited by the media. It's kind of it's kind of on point with where we are today. It's kind of made our what the news will do for a story.
Right.
It's kind of in there, isn't it?
Yeah, no, they've definitely tried to whip in a message there. The whole innocent, before being proven guilty kind of thing. The whole not court of public opinion, but rather an actual court, corrupt officials, all that kind of stuff is in there. I mean, just to give people an idea, if they haven't seen the movie, very brief plot outline is that a junior school teacher played by Gary Daniels, who is a good family man, one day accidentally during a carjacking gets embroiled in a secret, seemingly government-run and mysterious science fiction company-run testing laboratory where they're injecting people, especially illegal immigrants, which is another touchy subject right now, with a serum that sort of makes them stronger and less moralistic. And what it does with Gary Daniels when they inject him is give him the rage. And basically, we find out that as a mild-mannered junior school teacher, he's also always in the gym doing kung fu. So that's convenient. We find that out later on from his wife's brother, who he goes to for help. But in general, he's just a regular schmo put in extreme circumstances. And I have to say, deals with them very resourcefully. I don't know how much serum you would have to inject me to get me at the top of a skyscraper hanging on merely by my fingertips. But it would have to be a fuck ton of serum, I think.
Not enough.
Not enough.
There's not enough serum.
Not enough serum in the world to get me up a tall building like that. Even watching those stunt sequences turned my stomach, to be perfectly honest with you. Like I'm not good with heights at the best of times, but what's incredible, and we'll get onto this when we talk about our favorite scenes. But I watched Argyle last night, the new Matthew Vaughn movie, and prior to that, I had watched the new Guy Ritchie movie, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. And having watched Rage in between those two, is it really cemented, and I loved Ministry and I thought Argyle was just okay, but what it really cemented for me is that one of the things that I think is my drug when it comes to PM entertainment, the thing that keeps me coming back and back all the time, is the stunts done for real. There isn't a blip of CGI in this movie. It's real stuntmen doing really hair-raisingly dangerous, stomach-churning, what the fuck stunts in such a way that you kind of look at it and go, I can't believe this ever passed a permit. You know what I mean?
Just how did they get insurance?
Right. Exactly. And did anyone even care about insurance, or did they just go ahead and do it?
No. Lee Majors never cared about insurance.
Right. Exactly.
So, no.
But I think, that's another thing that stands out for me is my desire to see real stuff done for real and shot in camera. And there's so much of that in Rage. So let's go through some of our favorite scenes. So obviously we start off at the beginning of the movie with the first kind of action sequence, which I guess is when our mild-mannered teacher is carjacked. And then we sort of go on a bit of a car chase that then leads to him being brought to the secret underground testing facility.
Yes.
So that's the first action sequence. Do you have any favorite scenes in these early parts of the film?
I like all of it, to be honest. It does set a good scene. You know, he's like this really good teacher. You know, the kids love him. He's got a lovely wife, a lovely child.
They establish his character with wonderful. What's the word?
It's so simple.
Simple.
He's just teaching these kids the most basic, the basic things ever. They do it in a really good way, where you sort of go, well, he's a good guy.
Right. They establish his character, I guess, with like brevity is what I'm trying to say. They sort of do it with the minimum amount of scenes, but
they're not beating you over the head with it.
No.
It seems very natural.
Right. I mean, essentially, the script says we've got to establish this guy as a good guy, so that when he goes on a rage-based action killing spree, we still side with him over the big evil, corporation and government.
Yeah, we know it's not in his nature.
Right, exactly. And we sort of further get that renewed later on in the movie with his neighbor.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. We've been talking about our overall thoughts. And when we come back after this advertisement break, we're going to be talking all about our favorite scenes from the movie. These ads help keep the podcast free for you guys. So while we don't endorse any of the products that any of these ads are talking about, and while we suggest you simply fast forward them, please appreciate that the reason why they're in the show is to keep this free and to pay for the hosting and all the time and energy and effort that we go into putting this together. Well, thank you ever so much for listening to these ads, and we'll be back in just a moment. And we're back. All right, and we're talking about our favorite scenes from PM Entertainment's Rage. Yeah, so they establish his character, and in fact all the characters, very quickly but nicely, and it doesn't feel like they're skirting over anything. And if anything, it feels pretty realistic. You see the end of a class where he's,
Yes.
teaching them about animals and stuff. There's a sweet little teachable moment where one of the boys in class is all grumpy, and he gets all the other students to stand up and kind of tell him that they all love him and they he's a good friend or whatever, which is sort of lovely.
Yeah, the world's not a bad place.
Right, the world's not a bad place. You've got the fact that his students are all sort of very loyal to him. There aren't too many kids like playing up in the classroom, so he clearly has their respect. He goes home. He's a great father to his daughter. He's, a great husband to his particularly randy wife. We only really have two big scenes with the wife, and in both scenes, either he's desperate for a quickie or she's desperate for a quickie. They have a healthy sexual marriage, is what we're saying, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And so on his way back from taking his daughter to a sleepover, a guy jumps in the car with a gun. And we have found out earlier on in the movie, obviously, because they kind of intercut Gary's introduction with the fact that there has been a Mexican guy who's been bringing other illegal immigrants across the border, and that Border Patrol and local police and possibly the FBI, I don't really know. There's a lot of people involved in this big scheme, apparently, isn't happy with the people that are being brought across the border because they are not strong enough, they're not muscular enough, they're not fit enough. A lot of them are malnourished and so on. So when they find Gary Daniels in the car with the Mexican guy that they are trying to get hold of, they're like, well, wait a minute, he's all muscular and well-built and everything. Let's inject him full of serum and see what happens. And so it's sort of, Crank is the closest to this movie, right? Of all the sort of movies that came out after it, I think Crank owes a ton to this movie.
Yeah, good point. I wonder if the makers of Crank actually watched it.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%.
I mean, also the fact that you've got the two British leads as well.
Yeah. No, I think they looked around for like, okay, who is the Gary Daniels of today? And it was Jason Statham.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, with Gary Daniels, the accent. So, I mean, where's that Gary Daniels from? Is it Essex?
Well, he's from London, I think, originally, or that area, and maybe
Yeah, he's
East
got
London.
sort of,
But it always sounds to me like an East London guy trying to do an American accent, but they refer to him as a limey. So I'm like, maybe it's just his accent, but it's a weird accent. It's not a normal English accent.
yeah, he should have played it like Hugh Grant.
Yeah, I guess so.
And that would have like seemed really out of place. So when he's like sort of talking to like the Froggy Man later, when he could have sort of been like, don't know what's come over me.
I don't know what's going on.
You know?
Completely confused.
Yeah. Yeah. And he could have blended that sort of genre in with it as well.
Yeah.
But no, Gary Daniels does a good job as this, this sort of mild-mannered school teacher. But once he's got this rage serum in it, all bets are off. Don't get in his way.
Yeah, don't get in his way at all. I really liked, in terms of favorite scenes from the first half of the movie, I have to say, I really enjoyed when he breaks out of the. And in fact, if anything, if there was a scene that's sort of missing in this movie, and I guess it's just to kind of keep it rolling along, maybe they shot it but didn't include it, there is a pretty big time jump between him being kidnapped by this corporation to him breaking free. Like it happens pretty quickly, and you kind of there's a part of you that's like, wait, did he get the serum? Did he not get the serum? Like, do you know what I mean? Like the woman, the nurse comes over and sort of says like, just relax or whatever. And then the next thing you see is him breaking out of his restraints and attacking the whole place.
Yeah, it's so action orientated that it's very brief. The moments of like sort of dialogue just to let you know what's going on, like sort of like the basics of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean later on he does show off the scars on his arm and says, they hot me up full of serum or whatever, which you go, okay, well, we'd assumed as much, but you never, you don't see it. You don't see him hooked up to any machines. You don't see the needle going in. Like all of that is just skipped.
Yeah, I mean, how long did they have him for? Does it say?
No, it doesn't say. No, there's not like
I mean,
time
it could have
jump.
been that he was gone for a week, or you don't know really. He just sort of goes, he's had something done to him.
Yeah.
And then the next minute he's breaking out. So it could be like 2 months later or not, or something. We just don't know.
But it's a great fight scene with, he has this sort of, it's not a straight jacket, but a similar kind of thing, sort of a restraining jacket. And him fighting while also breaking out of that jacket and basically getting down to the point where he has both legs and an arm free, and then one of the other arms is sort of still wrestling with this jacket. I thought that was a really nice, in amongst the pyrotechnics of him basically destroying the lab and taking down a ton of the agents working there. He does a really good job. It's always nice when you have like a martial arts sequence where they add something different, where the guy is having, is restrained or tied to a chair or is carrying a baby or, there's, when he's got something else to do as well as it just being a breakout sequence, it always adds that little bit of interest,
Yeah, like in Hard Boiled where he's got the baby at the end.
Right.
And this breakout did remind me of like the John Woo heroic bloodshed films, double guns, slow motion gunfight battles.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm a sucker for that.
Oh yeah, I love all of that stuff. Yeah. I love all of that stuff, and I really enjoyed this scene. And it's a good scene. It has that. He's only in it very, very briefly, but that kind of. I've seen him in other stuff, like a big domed-faced, weird-looking guy who plays the doctor at the beginning. He's very scary looking. It's Gary Bullock. Who passed away just a couple of years ago. But, he's in Twin Peaks, Fire Walk With Me. He was in Species. He's shown up in a ton of these either horror movies or B movies. He's in Buffy the Vampire Slayer in an episode. And when you see him, you would know him. But he's fantastic. He has a very short scene, but fantastic as sort of the scary doctor at the beginning of the whole sequence.
Yeah, it's one thing in Hollywood having, good looking, being good looking, good physique and everything. But there's always the roles for the weird looking guy.
Oh yeah, and they use him so well in this. Like he's only in the one scene, but you kind of get the idea. Oh, there's this weird, menacing, odd-looking doctor who's going to be taking care of him, or rather, not taking very good care of him. So as we go through the movie, obviously the car chase, tanker chase is just phenomenal. He's got this. Abusive. He's either a border guard or a cop. I think he's sort of a border guard initially because he's wearing a slightly different colored uniform to the rest. I don't think he's Los Angeles police. He might even just be like hired help for this scientific research unit. I don't know. But
he wouldn't be out of place in a film now.
No, he's weirdly though not what I thought. I would have thought he was more of a stunt guy, but no, just basically a character actor. It looks like. I mean, he was in one episode of Renegade, the Lorenzo Lamas TV show. But in general, just did some TV stuff. He's in Leprechaun 2.
Yes.
He was in The Usual Suspects as a bodyguard. Always sort of low level. Rage is possibly one of his bigger roles, but he plays the main evil antagonist to begin with. He's the guy who's been going after Gary Daniels and restraining him and beating him up and all that stuff. And Gary is hell-bent on bringing the fucker down, and it takes an entire, like, what feels like 15-minute car chase and tanker chase to get the job done.
It's getting on a par with Mad Max 2. It's so good.
Yeah.
And I just like the logistics. It's you're saying this was made for like $500,000. They had to close a road,
right? And it looks, you can always tell, weirdly enough, when it's either an old road that hasn't been updated lately, or where it's probably a section of freeway that was about to be, worked on and re-tarmacked maybe. Because you can always tell, because it looks like this is one of those roads out west, and I used to live out west, that has had all the seams and potholes and everything kind of filled in, but has still got very old tarmac underneath. You can always tell when you look at the roads that it's probably a road that was due to be resurfaced.
Yes.
And they were like, can we just blow some shit up on it for 20 minutes? But no, I mean, when you think of sort of, I don't know, I go to something like the Indiana Jones truck chase in Last Crusade, or the car chase on the freeway in Lethal Weapon 4 with Riggs like hanging off the back on the table and the plastic and stuff. No, it's not necessarily to that level because it doesn't have that money. But for $350,000, it's as close to that fucking level as you've ever seen. I mean, there's one point where the tanker drives into. I love how he's in a tanker, notoriously not a fast vehicle at all. And instead of like chasing him down in a car, the other guy goes, "Well, fuck it, I'm getting into a school bus." I'm like. School buses have difficulty going over 40 miles an hour, but okay.
Yeah, and just carry on shooting bullets at it.
Yeah, just keep shooting bullets at what is most likely some form of oil or gasoline tanker. Like, just keep shooting bullets at it. But no, so he decides, well, I've got an idea. This is the fat, abusive cop. I'm going to play chicken with a tanker in a school bus. Gary Daniels' mild-mannered teacher's solution to how he's going to get out of this is quite entertaining.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, most of us would just probably, at the last second, jump out of the door. Gary Daniels decides instead to fly over the upcoming bus.
Yeah.
It's a sight to behold.
Well, they contrive it that the school bus goes slamming into the tanker. Everything explodes because of course it explodes. And then Gary Daniels, who has got out onto the roof, he's wedged down the accelerator pedal climbed out of the window onto the roof. Everyone's like, what the fuck is he doing? The guy continues to drive the school bus, even though we can see him on the roof, drives the school bus into the tanker. I don't know what he assumed was going to happen. Everything explodes, and Gary Daniels, or a stuntman for Gary Daniels, flies through the fire, through the air, and just has a very nice little roll when he lands on the ground.
Yeah.
Anyone else would have been on fire and broken every bone in their body.
Yeah, it reminded me of the motorbike stunt from Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah.
But you know, so good. It's like a proper fist pumping, that's my boy moment.
Oh, yeah. No, there's a couple of moments in this. And again, it's a long old car chase, but like they've put up a barricade, a police barricade to stop him. And they're checking every car that's driving through the barricade. And Daniels just drives the tanker right through the barricade. It's like, I'm not stopping.
Good enough to pull over.
Yeah.
It's the one little bit of dialogue is this old boy in the truck sort of going, I never usually stop to pick up hitchhikers because there's too much trouble. And he's like, oh, God, you picked up the wrong one this time then,
Yeah, because he throws him right out the truck. And this is the thing, it's quite funny because all the way through the movie, we get to Kenneth Tiger, who's the frog-faced man, the tiny little toad-faced man. He takes on Gary Daniels's cause as sort of his cause as well, because he's trying to get back in the good graces of his boss, having had a former journalistic mishap in the past when he tried to tell the truth and someone wanted to quash the truth. They couldn't handle the truth. So they stopped him from reporting the truth, and that put a sort of black mark on his career. He's trying to get back in the good graces of his boss. He's the only one that Gary Daniels will talk to. But what's funny is they keep professing Gary Daniels' innocence. And yes, he is innocent in the sense that, no, he didn't ask to be dragged into a scientific research laboratory and hopped up on rage-based aggressive soldier serum that's meant for, the military. No, he never asked for that. But every decision he makes after that, and I understand he's being chased by people, but like I say, this guy whose tanker he commandeers, I get that he had to commandeer it and he's being chased and everything else, but he does just push a man out of his own truck at high speed.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, he could just get out the lorry and walk up the embankment, couldn't he?
Yeah, but that wouldn't make much of a movie, so we should probably not point that out all the time. But yes, at any point in this film, Gary Daniels could stop what he was doing and I guess allow the system to play out. But they throw enough.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, exactly.
Rage by Mike Lee.
It's just Gary Daniels just being like, well, I was a mild-mannered teacher and then I got arrested and beaten up and hot full of drugs. And now I'm
full of rage, but he'll quit.
Yeah,
he'll go.
Now I'm in a cafe and nut-eating. Yeah. Staring into my coffee. So that's a great scene. The car chase is a fantastic scene. Then, we have the incredible skyscraper sequence, which is really just...
Before that, don't we have the inside the house where the call gets traced?
We do. We have the sequence with the S&M couple who beat the shit out of him. Yes, but we can talk about it. The S&M fight scene, sure, with the frying pans.
Oh yeah, it's just that's kind of where they get their next lead on where he is.
Yes,
and yeah, this crazy scene with this S&M couple. Yeah, like you quite rightly pointed out. All he had to do was sort of come in and go, what are you doing in my house?
Yeah, why have you eaten all our meat and drunk all our milk?
Yeah, why is it when people are so hungry in films, you'd think you'd just sit there and eat, but they sort of have to eat everything at once.
Well, I think the implication is that the pain in his stomach won't go away unless he feeds the rage, I think.
Like an animal.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what they were going for. So it looks like he's tucking into... I mean, it looks like Thanksgiving stuffing is what it looks like. It looks like the kind of sausage and bread stuffing that.
I thought it looked like stuffing, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe he's just eating gobs and gobs of stuffing. They were like, Gary, we've spent all our money on car chases, explosions, and hanging off buildings. So I'm sorry, all we can do is mix up this powdered stuffing.
or what more likely was, that's what catering had that day.
Yeah. That too. And he wastes a whole carton of milk though, so that's at least probably back then it was probably like $1.50. Nowadays that's like $6 worth of milk.
That's probably why they were so upset.
Right.
The couple, they were just like, fucking just bought that milk.
Unless of course, along with being S&M people, they're also into like baby play. The fact that he wakes him up hitting him with a frying pan. Yeah, I mean, in novel, they try and, like, each fight they try and do something different, which is
it was the 90s.
It was the 90s. We were much more liberated people back then. But then we get by the time he gets to the offices of his brother-in-law, they get a tip-off that he's there, probably because the receptionist sees him or something, and all the police converge on this high-rise in downtown LA. Which leads us to a sequence where my stomach was in my throat the whole time. Let's talk about, I think, probably what is, outside of the truck and tanker chase, probably what is the most famous sequence in Rage, which is this insane stunt sequence up on the roof of a large skyscraper.
Yep, midpoint of the film, I think, and it's the Mission Impossible stunt of the film.
Yeah. I mean, it builds so incredibly.
Yeah. Yeah, and just when you think it's hit the where it's going to, something else happens. The helicopter turns up. He falls off. He's just made it. He falls off again. And, there's no grip on there. It's just like it's exactly what PM Entertainment Towers is.
Right.
A huge building made of glass.
Yeah.
Ready to be shattered into 100 million pieces.
And what's quite impressive is that there are many shots in this sequence where it is Gary Daniels.
Yeah. He was all present and there for the day of shooting, certainly.
He runs to the top of the roof, realizes he's being followed by many police, thinks, oh my God, the only thing I can do is hang off the building and hope they don't look over the side too much. They all say he's not up here and run down, but then what happens? A helicopter with a sniper shows up, and even that, like even a guy just sitting casually on the edge of a helicopter, leaning out, firing a gun, like even that is giving me a little vertigo, because I'm like, there's nothing holding him in. He's just sat there on the edge of a helicopter firing a gun over the top of LA.
Yeah, like I say, you just wouldn't. It wouldn't be done today.
No. I mean, it would all be green screened. All of it would be green screened. There would be no. Yeah. I mean,
there probably wouldn't even be a helicopter.
I mean, even by the time you get to, there are some Bond films where either the fight in the helicopter or the fight on the wing of an airplane or whatever is all filmed safely on the ground with, big fans blowing to make it look like it's flying through the air or whatever. And I mean, of this era, there are very few, film companies that are really putting people up in helicopters above high rises above Los Angeles while a stuntman hangs off what seemingly is a sheer wall of glass. Like it's.
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy is Tom Cruise does it in Mission Impossible 4.
Yeah.
And it gets all this big coverage. Gary Daniels does it 1995, and it's
yeah.
Okay.
Well, Tom Cruise, to be fair to Tom Cruise, he was running around the top of the tallest building in the world and was just sort of like hanging out there, enjoying himself. I think that's what gets reported is Cruise is just like okay and casual about it. It's not quite, but you're totally right. Gary Daniels deserves a lot of plaudits for doing what he does. Most definitely.
Yeah, also it just goes to show that the 90s, people were doing this sort of thing and there was no big attention drew to it.
No,
it
you're
was
very
just
right.
It was just the time of movie making. And now as everything's more protected. There's more CGI. It makes more of a storm when there's a big, real stunt that goes off.
Yeah, and I think it also is difficult nowadays because, you look at the stunt team on something like a Fast and Furious 8 or whatever. A lot of that stuff in Fast and Furious franchise is probably done for real, but because there is so much CGI use and other stuff as well, blue screen, green screen, whatever you want to call it, you can never tell what the real stunts are, and therefore nowadays it sort of all gets lost in the mix. Whereas, meaning when you see these things behind the scenes footage and you see that they really drove a tank down a freeway or whatever in a Fast and Furious film, you go, I wouldn't have known because it was so CGI enhanced that they could have driven it through a studio and just you know what I mean? Like the latest Spider-Man movie, the third part of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movie that was made during COVID, was all made in front of green screen, even scenes of him walking down the road in New York. So it's like, it's very difficult to tell these days. Whereas when you watch a sequence like this in Rage, I think that you're right. Jason Statham and others have been calling out for a stunt Oscar for years and years and years. And, it would be a shame if that never came to pass. But it's equally a shame that nothing like that existed back in the day, because I don't know, what Spiro's team is doing in this sequence should have been just highlighted and praised and awarded. I mean, it's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you would have had a stunt section for the Oscars in the 90s, it wouldn't have been Oscar bait that were up for it. It would have been the films from PM Entertainment, because they were like the real stunts, but they wouldn't want it to. They wouldn't have had those up at the Oscars, unfortunately. Maybe nowadays it's all a bit more mainstream. They'll do it.
Yeah, and then there's the sequence on top of the roof. He's hanging off the roof. Then the police come up. They decide he's not there. They go down. He climbs back off the edge of the building onto the roof. The helicopter shows up. He's like, shit. Then he climbs back down over the edge of the building again and tries to crawl around the edge of the building just using his tiptoes to try and get away from the helicopter. Eventually crawls far enough to be hanging above several stories above a kind of window washer cart that they have on these high rises, does a high fall from the building down onto the window washing cart. Then the guy with the gun in the helicopter shoots out the wire that is holding the window washer cart. So then the stuntman goes sliding down the side of the building on a window washer cart, only for the bottom of it to come loose and him be hanging still several stories above the street from the bottom of this window washer cart, swinging back and forth on the edge of the building, eventually grabbing another rope that's hanging down, and with that rope gets enough momentum to swing and grab hold of the bottom of the helicopter. I mean, if your arms weren't tired from the first 20 minutes of hanging from the top of a building, grabbing onto a helicopter, and then it flying away across the freeway with them fighting and hanging from beneath it. I mean, it's breathtaking.
It is. It is. I mean, that's one way to catch a helicopter, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Don't wait for it to land.
It ends with, of course, he eventually does fall off the helicopter into that notoriously soft of landings, a sheet glass roof on what looks like a conservatory or greenhouse or something on the back of a building. And they go, oh, don't worry about him. No one could survive that fall. Cut to Gary climbing his way out of some glass. I've survived. Off I go again. Well, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. It is, of course, now interview time. As you will have heard on the first episode, we spoke to Joseph Mary and Spiro Razatos, and our plan is, as we go forward with this podcast, to speak to and interview as many people behind and in front of the camera with PM Entertainment as possible, and sort of use some of those conversations in these episodes, as well as potentially down the road to make some sort of audio histories of PM Entertainment. So we have lots and lots of bits of content that we can distribute throughout these episodes. Anyway, on this particular episode, the only information we have around the film Rage specifically is from Spiro Razatos at the moment. However, the information he has about the stunt sequences in Rage are some of the best stories we've heard so far. So I'm incredibly happy to present to you a clip from our interview with Spiro Razatos talking about all the action sequences in Rage. So hopefully you get a big kick out of that. Just wait till you hear the story about the action sequence on top of the skyscraper that you just heard Doc and I talking about. Just wait till you hear Spiro's story about how he shot that. It is absolutely breathtaking. So a really great interview snippet, but just Spiro this time. And hopefully on later episodes, we have a lot more people lined up talking about various films. What I'm trying to make right now is the interviews be film specific, and we will release the full interviews in a different format, hopefully down the road. Anyway, just like earlier and just like last time, we do have to have some commercials in order to pay for the show. So there will be a few commercials, and then the interview will start with Spiro Razatos. So thanks ever so much for listening. Enjoy this interview with Spiro, and don't forget to rate, review us, share, like, comment, all that good stuff, because without those things, nobody else gets to hear the show. So don't hold it all to yourself. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell a stranger on the street. We need to get the word out about this so that more people can find out, enjoy, and relish in the world of PM Entertainment. We pick up the interview with Spiro where he is talking a little bit about the similarities and differences between the Fast and Furious franchise that he works on and PM Entertainment movies, but also why PM Entertainment was such an important part of his career.
The one big thing difference, obviously, between Fast and PM, that's why PM is such a big part of my life and important, is that, you know, you like you said, you can compare and say, wow, some of this reminds us of Fast, but you got to remember PM movies were $1 million, Fast and Furious are $250 million. So,
yeah.
So, you know, we were able to do crazy stuff for $1 million and so minimum, you know, but it's the same people. That's what's amazing, is that the same people that did the action on PM are the exact same people driving the cars and doing the action on Fast. Same people. We just, you know, bunch of, I mean, we have a few new guys, but bunch of just old guys just, you know, continuing to do what we can, you know, so.
Of course. You went on to Rage with Gary Daniels, and I think Rage is, you know, those three movies, Rage, Riot, and Recoil, are always called the 3 R's of PM. They're always the ones that even people who don't necessarily know all of PM Entertainment's films, they're the ones that people talk about a lot. And Rage especially, I think, because not only does it have the incredible kind of death-defying stunts in it, but it's sort of whereas a lot of PM Entertainment films clearly wear their influences on their sleeves and are often like borrowing from genres that already exist, Rage sort of has that element that I think would go on to inspire other films like Crank and some of the stuff that Jason Statham did when he first started out. So talk a little bit about working with Gary Daniels on Rage and specifically sort of the sequences like the hanging off the skyscraper stunt, which turns my stomach every time I watch it.
No, it's great. Well, Gary Daniels, I cannot say enough about him. I mean, we still keep in touch. And, you know, what's great about him is you don't get a nicer guy. You don't get a guy that's more talented, you know. So he's got everything that you could want, and he listens, and he doesn't have an ego to get himself hurt, but he'll trust you, and he knows his ability. And so it's one of the best relationships with an actor and stunts that I've had. And it was just incredible, you know. And so we got a chance to actually work together just briefly on The Expendables by accident again. He was hired as an actor, and I was doing second unit. So that was neat to see him kind of past our PM Entertainment days. But anyway, so that, you know, working with him is obviously incredible. Before I get into the skyrise thing. There was a sequence in Rage. Here's the thing. I enjoy life. I love doing stunts. I have fun. I get in trouble a lot, but I get in trouble because I'm like a kid at a candy store.
Yeah.
So people, that's why I get along really good with more filmmakers. It doesn't mean that I know more than them, definitely, but I can. But when they tell me, when a filmmaker says to me, "No, Spiro, I don't like what you want to do because of this, or it doesn't help the story, or with this," I listen to them, and if I feel that they're missing something on my end, I give it another shot, and then they're good enough to say, "Oh yeah, I get it. Let's do it your way." Or second time he says, "No, I still think we got to do it this way." Then I give in. So that's what I love about working with true filmmakers, and that's how you learn, and that's how you get your vision, or you combine your visions and you get them out there.
Yeah.
But I love having a good time, and PM allowed me to do that with all the dangerous stuff and the guys that were risking their lives on it. These big stunts with a small budget, so that it was tough. There was a sequence when I read the script where Gary goes into a house, breaks into a house, and there's a couple upstairs.
Yeah.
I guess having sex.
Well, S&M gear or something. Yeah.
No, that's not what the script had.
Oh, okay.
That's not. This is the part that people don't know about me.
Got it.
In the script, all it said was there's a couple having sex and they hear a noise. That's all it said. And then right in my mind, I'm thinking, instead of doubling whatever, finding a couple that Joseph finds and me doubling them, I started to just get like, what can I do to have fun with my guys? So I thought about the smallest stunt guy that I have in my team and the biggest stunt woman that I have in my team. And I went up to Joseph and said, "Joseph, wouldn't it be better, instead of people just having sex, that you get this S&M kinky guy, this big woman, and this tiny guy, and they have a fight with Gary? It would be hilarious, and it'd be different." So he said, "Well, that's great." So we changed the script because of my recommendation. And Joseph goes, "I love it." And I go, "But Joseph, I want one more favor." He goes, "What?" "I want to pick the wardrobe for the guy because he's one of my best friends, and I wanted to make it as silly and make him as embarrassed as possible, right?"
Nice.
So I said, "I want to pick the wardrobe." He goes, "Okay, go talk to wardrobe," right? So I went and picked the wardrobe, did all that, and he hated acting. And I'll never forget, when it was time to do the scene, I would never go to a dialogue scene, right? I went to the set on purpose. I brought a couple of stunt guys that know him, and he could see us watching him, and he's trying to do the scene. And in the middle of the scene, he goes to Joseph. He goes, "Joseph, can't you just light me on fire and throw me out the window? It'd be so much easier than me trying to say this line." It was hilarious. It was hilarious. So, anyway, so that was all my creative, my idea, changed the script, picked the wardrobe, and had fun with the guys. So, that's the stuff that made it worthwhile to work with Joseph, and the guys had a good time. And yes, well, the first sequence with the trucks and the semi, I mean, we did stuff that was groundbreaking. I mean, we were jackknifing a semi, and we didn't have the ability to do it, when they build it from scratch. So we were like, we had to come up with ways to do it with oil coming and pushing it. We flipped a tanker. I mean, stuff that was only done on Beverly Hills Cop and movies like that. We were doing it on these $1 million movies.
Yeah, and you had a guy jump off the bus, I think, as it explodes, and land in front. Yeah,
as it explodes. Yes, and we've only had a few small injuries, and that guy got a little singed on that.
Yeah,
because effects their timing was not good, and so there's been a few things, but fortunately there hasn't, on my shows, I know Joseph has had things, and unfortunately when you do a lot of movies, things are going to happen once in a while, and you just pray they don't happen, and they're minimal when they do. But so I've been very lucky with the PM things, and it's that was one of the few times that I've had an incident and the guy got singed on that. He was fine, but he got, he went through the fire and it got him a little bit.
Yeah.
So again, we did stuff that was completely, hadn't been done only on big movies, if that. And then the building thing, that sequence, obviously, that was also, everything was practical. Guys were dropping into the window washers, doing flips. And the way to do that, like, we couldn't do it like in normal movies where you have, like, the guy that that was on the window washer, doubling Gary. When he did the stunt where it opens up and releases and he rolls out of it, we had an IMO there. He had to turn on the camera. He had to do his own effects because, all that stuff was all self-contained right there. Nobody could get to it or could operate it and see it. So he was doing all that stuff. Denny Pierce, I know one of the things you want to talk about is one of the most fearless stunt guys in our team. And obviously they all had their own way of being fearless, but Denny Pierce definitely cut the cake on doing the toughest, hardest hitting stunts back in my career, and still doing it. I mean, the guy on Fast 10 jumped out of a semi, on the thing at his age now, and
Wow.
it's like, and I said, Danny, please, I don't, but guys don't do it like he does anymore. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Like, guys just don't do it like he does. Anyway.
On the building, that was Denny doing the hanging from the window washer platform. Is that bit?
Yes, that was
Okay.
Denny Pierce. Yep, doing all that. He was the guy that got singed also.
Yeah.
Twice. Larry, the effects guy, has singed him twice on PM. So one of the only times I've had any mishaps have both been with poor Denny and both effects, and both of them were just because of the button, hitting the button at the wrong time.
Right.
So just not Denny's fault, but those things happen. But one of my greatest stories ever told as a filmmaker, one of my highest moments, probably easily top 3 that has ever happened, is me doing something special as a director, if not the best moment, was on the building sequence. I'll never forget it. I always tell this to people that want to become action directors or whatever, what I had to do. You don't have to do those things nowadays, but it sure helps to have that ability. I'll never forget, I was doing this sequence. It's obviously a big sequence. I had helicopters. Think about this. I had 2 helicopters, a camera ship, and, the shooting helicopter. We were 30 stories up. We had riggers. We had descenders. We had, there was no mistake could be made, right? It'd be fatal, right?
Yeah.
No mistake could be made. And I remember I needed 3 setups to finish the sequence. Now, I had the time, and Joseph, I guess, realized the helicopter hours as they build up, they're expensive. He comes up to me and said, Spiro, I'm not paying the helicopter any more time. I go, Joseph, I got 3. He goes, no, I'm done. Helicopter's done. And I go, Joseph, I can't. The sequence. He goes, I'm telling you. I go, Joseph, I beg you, please. He goes, you got 1 shot then. 1. I go, Joseph, I need 3. I won't have the sequence. He goes, nope, you get 1. You're lucky I'm getting it. That's it. And he walked away. And he told them, 1 setup. That's it. You guys are done after that. So I'm sitting there thinking, what do I do? What do I do? I won't have the sequence, right?
Yeah.
And I needed 3 things. I needed a close-up of Gary hanging off the building with the helicopter in the background shooting, because I wanted to time in. I mean, nothing's better than seeing the real actor with real big stunts around him. Now you believe that he's doing it for real, right?
Right.
So I needed a shot of Gary and the helicopter shooting at him and him dropping out of frame. Now we found a part of the building on the roof that he could be there, but was only about 12 feet high. So you could, he wasn't in danger, but if you shot past his close-up, you see the same glass around him, and you see the background is, you're 30 stories up. So we were able to cheat him and keep him safe with crash pads underneath and all that. So that was one setup. The other setup I needed was a stunt guy hanging on the edge early on in the sequence on the very top with the helicopter going around and shooting at him with the camera ship shooting past the helicopter to get the production value of a helicopter in the foreground and a guy hanging off of 30 stories and wrapping around that big, James Bond Mission Impossible shot.
Yeah.
I needed that. And then finally, I needed Denny, because Denny down on the window washer. So this was in a different part of the building, down, 10 stories, 8 stories down below. On the window washer with the helicopter, I needed the POV of the sniper, right? I needed the POV of the sniper, and I needed a shot of the helicopter picture chopper with the camera ship shooting it.
Right.
So that's actually 2 more setups.
Yeah.
So that's 4 setups I needed. 4 setups at least that I needed. And Joseph said, you get 1. So what do? I had 10 minutes to figure all this out. I sat there and I said, okay, get Gary up in position there. All right, get 1 camera there. Boom. Get his close-up. Boom. Get another stunt guy, a rigger, who wasn't even Gary's double. Get him in the wardrobe and hang him over the top of the corner of the building. Boom. They did that, right? Then Denny, you get in position down on the window washer. Boom. You got it. Okay, this is what we're going to do. The choppers are going to start with the picture chopper, and it's going to get in the shot with Gary Daniels and just go back and forth and just shoot. So I have him reveal, disappear, come in the shot, and do that for, 1 minute real quick. Roll camera, got that. I said, as soon as you do that, you're not landing. You're going to go, and the camera ship now goes and meets him at the top of the building where the other stunt guy, the rigger, the new stunt double, is hanging. And you will sit there, and the camera ship will keep dolling around the picture chopper that's trying to get a shot at the guy. You get me about a minute worth of footage, dance back and forth, move up and down, reveal, do all that, right? Boom. As soon as you do that, you guys shift to the around the building. Denny will be waiting for you. You shoot. The camera ship goes where Denny is and pretends it's the POV of the sniper. You get a clean shot of Denny ducking. He'll be setting off some sparks and all this. He's ducking. You're pretending that you're the sniper trying to get a shot. As soon as you get a bit of that, back away, let the picture ship come into the shot, and you do some shots with Denny. Boom, boom, boom. You do that. You get 4 major setups, and you've got all these things, and they get the shot in 1 setup.
Wow. Fantastic.
And
that is incredible.
Yeah. And so I had to think of that and Joseph giving me 1 setup, and I got 4 major helicopter, 30-story stunts, dangling, actors, close-ups, all that in 1 setup.
Wow. And it's such a sequence as well. It's just a breathtaking sequence.
If someone had to say, define your moment as a filmmaker, I would say, other than seeing the movie Shaft at 10 years old that made me want to do this, that is one of the moments.
Oh, no, that's incredible, Spiro. That is absolutely incredible. I'll think about that now every time I watch the movie. That's amazing. Yeah, because essentially you've got this camera helicopter having to like whiz all over the place and cover 4 different setups while the other helicopter just kind of moves back and forth. Yeah.
Exactly, between each other, and dance with each other, get in position. Yep.
Oh man, what an existence! That must have been absolutely incredible to pull that off. Well, weren't those some great stories? Oh my goodness, I'm so happy that I get to share those with you. Anyway, now we go back to the end of my conversation with Doc Paul Croson, all about the movie Rage. We're going to wrap it up pretty soon, but thanks ever so much for listening. There'll be a couple more commercials, and then we'll go back to Doc. If you've enjoyed this episode, like I said before, don't forget to rate, review, share, comment, all that good stuff. It really, really does help podcasts. And thanks for everyone who's engaging on the Facebook page. I get excited every day to see your comments and hear your questions and hear your suggestions. So please don't stop doing that. It's awesome. We love it. Thanks so much for everyone coming out to support us in the way that they have been. Keep it up. It's awesome. Thank you. All right, back to the show. And then we, obviously, skipping forward to the end, we then have the big mall shootout. But the car chase, the hanging from the building, and then the mall shootout, those are the 3 big set pieces. But even in between them, there's like 6 small set pieces.
Oh, yeah. It's all action. I mean, the skyscraper would be enough to finish a film.
Yes.
But no, it's just the midpoint action scene, and yeah, it's a highlight. But the mall scene at the end is wonderful.
It is, and it's
wonderful.
It's fantastic. As I say, they have a surf shop and a video shop fight that basically consists of people repeatedly punching each other through glass windows.
Yes.
Like they punch him into the shop through a glass window and punch him out of a shop through a glass window. At one point, the bad guy is running for the shop door, Gary Daniels slams the door, which is made of glass, and the guy just falls through the glass. I mean, the PM Entertainment, it's a lot like the end of Last Man Standing, right, with Jeff Wincott, which is the other mall. Doesn't that end in a mall, that movie?
There's definitely a mall scene, and there is a lot of broken glass.
A lot of broken glass. So this is reminiscent of that, I feel like.
Yeah, I think PM Entertainment definitely had a deal with some sort of window replacement company in the LA area.
Yeah, in the Northeast, for anyone who's either lives in New York or Connecticut, it would be Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace. That's the little, you hear that all the time. It's a little jingle for people to come around and replace your windscreens.
I think here it'd probably be Stay Bright, Stay Bright windows.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace. That's the little jingle. But yes, they smash up a whole shit ton of stuff in the mall, including my favorite moment in the whole mall sequence is when they're destroying that video shop, which is clearly just filled with all PM Entertainment products. I love it because you get to look at all the posters on the wall, but it also breaks my heart because I just want to go in and buy all those movies.
Yeah, imagine how much they're all worth now. And the posters. Oh, fuck yeah. The posters are worth a ton. Sell them on eBay for a few $100. Yeah.
But no, just a great sequence all round. Some great stunt sequences. And just, as you say, just a breathtaking movie. Let's wrap it up then with, any more comments about the movie? And B, where do you rank this within the sort of PM Entertainment films and or Gary Daniels films that you have seen?
It's definitely, from what I remember of what I've seen of the PM Entertainment films, Rage is one of the top ones. It's pretty hard to beat because, like I say, it's all there. Everything you need is there. In it, it's it's very good plot, really, for what it is. That gets you sort of hooked in, and the action scenes are great. And it's definitely one of Gary Daniels' best films. Cold Harvest is pretty good, but Rage is the one.
Yeah, Cold Harvest is if you want to see more of his fighting style.
This Rage is more guns, definitely, and it sort of scratches a few of those itches with your gunplay and the martial arts stuff.
Yeah,
it's sort of an all-round action film.
But I mean, not that he doesn't throw a few kicks. I mean, there's plenty of.
Oh no! He does the fighting as well in Rage. Gary Daniels is high kicks galore.
But I feel like in Cold Harvest, it's more like, here is now a 6-minute martial arts fight scene, whereas in Rage, it's more just part of it.
It was to build on the Cyborg film of the days, the sort of Mad Max ripoff.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Rage is more. I don't know. It's more like sort of. I think it's more like Hard Target. It's got that little message in with the media as well. The guy trying to sort of steer everybody away to sort of expose the truth.
Yeah. Oh, the truth is, yeah. I mean, what's weird is, in a weird way, Rage becomes more and more relevant with each passing year because it's don't trust the government, don't trust the police. Sorry, go ahead, dude.
Yeah, no, as soon as I started watching it again and these illegal immigrants are sort of in a room and they were sort of being exploited, I thought, oh, crap, what was this, mate?
Yeah, right? Yeah, so, I mean, a lot, it's don't trust the government, don't trust the police, don't trust the news media. They're exploiting illegal immigrants.
Kill a Brit abroad.
What's that, dude?
And they're trying to kill a Brit abroad.
Yeah, right? Who they have a lot of fun with. There's a lot of like, we got to get this limey fuck. There's a lot of that kind of stuff.
I kind of love that.
which I always appreciate because I feel like it's such a nice, it's sort of like a cozy, outdated insult at this point. Like if someone walked into the bar where I drink and went, is that limey fuck here? I'd be like, who, me? Yeah, certainly. Do you want to come sit down?
Yeah.
Like it's such a cozy, friendly insult at this point.
Yeah, because you got to go over and do the Matt Berry thing, yeah. I am here.
Did somebody call? It is me. But yes, I rank this as in my top 5 of PM Entertainment films, which currently on Letterboxd, and you can follow me at After Movie Diner on Letterboxd. My top 5 so far are Shotgun, Steel Frontier, Living to Die, Ring of Fire 3, Lion Strike, which, by the way, Doc, if you haven't seen it, watch that as soon as possible. Talk about non-stop fucking action. Ring of Fire 3, Lion Strike, phenomenal. And
they've released that in Germany, haven't they?
Yeah, and then Rage. So those are my top 5 right now, with Inferno and The Killer's Edge as my 6 and 7. Shotgun, Steel Frontier, Living to Die, Ring of Fire 3, Lion Strike, and Rage. Those are my top 5 PM Entertainment films as we stand. And and this is all based on what I've written in reviews of on Letterboxd, so it's maybe not every single Gary Daniels movie I've ever seen, but I've apparently watched 17 of them. And out of that 17, Rage is my second favorite Gary Daniels movie, but that's because he shows up in the original Expendables, and I gave that a slightly higher mark. But Rage is, if you're just talking straight to video, low budget Gary Daniels movie, Rage is my number 1, with Blood Moon being my number 2.
Oh, yeah. I really like Last Man Standing with Jeff Wincott. I think that's a really good film.
We'll have to have you back on to discuss that then, Doc.
I'd love to be on for that. And Shotgun, is that Jason Lively?
No, no. You're thinking of Maximum Force.
That's right. So who's in Shotgun? Did we do Shotgun?
No, Shotgun is a very early one. Shotgun was one that came out in 1989. It was one of I think it's the second one that carries the PM Entertainment name. And it's very low budget.
I must have watched it.
The only person in it that you may have heard of is Riff Hutton. Apart from that, all the other cast are no names.
You know what? That rings a bell. I mean, I've definitely had the DVD.
Of Shotgun?
Yeah.
That is worth something too, so hold on to that.
Yeah.
But no, Stuart Chapin or Chapin or Chapin. I don't know how he pronounces his last name, but it's Chapin. Stuart Chapin was an actor who was known for Shotgun. That's who's in it. Yeah, Shotgun is sort of like it's very early PM. It's very low budget, way lower budget than Rage, and it's sort of more got that kind of sleazy Los Angeles. It feels a bit like The Exterminator by Glickenhaus meets Samurai Cop meets Vice Squad with Wings Hauser. It meets Zipperface. It's sort of very grimy and B-movie and low budget, but I fucking loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got that. I've got this and I'm seeing it.
Well, hold on to it, sir, because Shotgun is rare and expensive to pick up on VHS or DVD. So keep hold of that. Anyway, thank you ever so much for joining us on this episode of the PM Entertainment Podcast discussing the movie Rage. We hope to have you back on the show very soon, sir. Is there anything or anywhere that you would like people to find you, or are you happy to remain in a bed of anonymity as far as the internet is concerned?
That suits me fine.
And if you want to find me, you can find me wherever the words After Movie and Diner are put together. AfterMovieDiner.com is my regular movie website on which the PM Entertainment Podcast has a page. You can go find it there. You can find me online as After Movie Diner or as PM Entertainment Podcast. We are on both Instagram and Facebook. And as I said at the beginning, please, if you've enjoyed the show even a little bit, don't forget to rate and review us on any of the podcasting platforms you're using. Share our Facebook posts, our Instagram posts, like, comment, and you can always contact us via our email at pmentpod@gmail.com. That's pmentpod@gmail.com. Thanks ever so much for listening, and we'll be back next week with more PM Entertainment Explosive Magic.
Thank you for having me on.
You are now leaving the PM Entertainment Podcast.